Hey up guys, it's Rory from Enlighten the Shadows. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Today is going to be episode 12. If you didn't check out any of our episodes in the last 11 we've done, plus the special episodes with Paolo Piliero, check them out. Don't do it yet. Wait till after this episode. Go on our YouTube channel, Enlighten the Shadows, and there is so much to choose from already. I can't believe we're 12 episodes in. I get a wide variety of guests on this show, just tailored to everyone's needs. So I'm mixing it up so someone can get something out of the last 12. And I'm really excited about what's just been happening this past few days. We had Ian Deacon, a former professional footballer, come on our show here, Enlighten the Shadows. And the guy just went in, he talked so deep and real. And that's our mantra. We want to have real talk and real men, just trying to create that community and that platform so we can all just feel like comfortable about sharing where we're at in a headspace. So yeah, what I want to say before we introduce episode 12 special guest, I want to say thank you so much. It's popping off. It's early days in Light in the Shadows. We've only been going a couple months now, and we've had over 180 odd views since last time I checked this morning. So I'm just like blown away about the support and also the sharing and the views. Like, it's getting far and wide, and that's what it's about. Go to people that I can't potentially reach. So thank you so much. Without me going on too much more, today, let's fix it right now. I have got someone that I have met through the power of social media. Like, Instagram's a quality place, and it's helping us network with people who have got the same heart and passion. And today's guest is a female. She's now my second female out of about 13 people. And the reason why I think it's important we have the ladies coming on now and then popping up, the people who have got a passion to support blokes who are struggling. And this lady, she's got such a heart for mental health and improving people's lives. She's a recovery worker in the mental health industry for a charity, and also on the side, she's a specialist mental health coach, and I know she's got a master's of last time I checked on her Insta. So yeah, here we go. Today we've got Cleo Whitehead. So I want to say, Cleo, thank you so much for just working with us and coming on the show today. You doing all right?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great. Yeah, I'm great, thanks. As you see, I'm smiling a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I just want to say before we start that it's an absolute honour. I've been watching what you guys do, and I have been passionate about mental health for 17 years now, and just being able to see what men are doing and raising awareness for other men and giving a voice to men's mental health is really amazing. So anything I can do to help is amazing. It's an honour to be on. So thanks for having me.
That hotline, guys, in the background, that's not Enlighten the Shadows calls. Those of you who don't know, my wife is a speech language therapist. I over here didn't unplug the phone, so if we get some calls, just bear with.
It's all right.
We've had dogs, we've had wives coming through the background, so we keep it real. It's cool. We're not a plastic environment, so this is how we roll.
It's all part of it.
Yeah, of course. So Cleo, before we go in real deep about some specialist points that I want to really bring for the fellas today, and bring some tools, and talking about deconditioning, talking about men being represented or saying a lack of it, and just having your heart. We want to just hear a bit of your background. So you said to us just a minute ago, you're 17 years in this game. I remember like only about 2 or 3 years ago, me even hearing the term mental health, and me having a complete lack of understanding and a lack of self-awareness of my feelings, emotions, and being a bit of a head job myself. And I don't mind myself saying that, and a bit all over the place. So you're well ahead of many of us. So can you just give enlighten our viewers like some of your experiences and even just the journey you've been on, educating yourself ultimately?
Yeah. So Rory, as far as I can remember, when I was a teenager, I struggled. I just didn't feel like I fit. I didn't fit the normal teenage mold. I didn't want to be doing what normal teenagers did. I think like I always felt that I just felt things too deeply, and I thought things too deeply. And I guess I was a bit old for my years in my head. I just never really felt like a kid or a teenager. And as a young person from the age of 14, I developed anorexia, bulimia, different eating disorders, and I had really low self-esteem. And because of the eating disorders, I developed depression and anxiety, because obviously I was constantly overthinking and restricting myself. And you know, not living the life I really should live. So as young as 15, I was struggling with my mental health, but I always knew that it could be different and I didn't have to give into it. And I always knew there was more. So from the age of 17, 18, when I went off to university, I started exploring mental health and I started self-studying. I started self-help. And I spent, you know, I had the odd therapist in my 20s, but, you know, the basic CBT model didn't really get me through. And I was exploring so much other stuff, spirituality, mindfulness, emotion regulation. And I started just reading. I watched every TED talk you can ever imagine. And I just really became passionate about everything mental health. And I spent, 10 years transforming my own mental health, and I did it all through self-help. And so as much as that was amazing and I empowered myself to do that, once I'd transformed my own mental health, I thought, I want to be able to help people to do this in a much more quick and efficient way. That means they don't have to read every single self-help book. They don't have to watch every single TED talk, you know, they can do it quicker. And that's what got me interested in trying to support other people, because I went through the journey myself and I just want it to help other people navigate their way through it.
I love that so much. And I think that's so important for the viewers right now to hear, that you're not just some lass that's, you know, had a, you know, nice little preppy upbringing and life was all cushy, and, you know, you didn't really have struggles, but you just had just genuine empathy, which is an absolute strength to have to supporting people. But, you know, you've had your absolute horrible struggles. Like I know even like there's blokes that struggle with, body image and anorexia and bulimia and all these things, and you know, a lot of people like think, oh, it's just women. Men sadly struggle with it as well. And I can't personally imagine. Me and Paolo actually we had a little team meeting yesterday in town, and you know, he won't mind me saying, but a guy like him, he's like cut. Like I'm okay with my body. I work out. I don't go to the gym, but I like run a lot, play football all the time. So I've never really struggled with body image until the lockdown. I've got a little puppy fat that I've got rid of. But he like confessed, like he looks at these blokes who are proper cut, like on socials, and you know, proper, like, you know, we're talking 1% body fat. They just got unreal bodies, and like you can look to them, and sometimes he can get cut and think he's a bit self-conscious about his own body. I look at him, I think, mate, what you on about? You're absolute cut. But you know, it's a weird thing, isn't it? The whole body image thing, how we get a bit trapped in our minds about how we perceive things.
We do. And I had body dysmorphia. So it's, you don't see, and so many people in the world have it, you don't see your body as it actually is. You see your body as something else than the reality, and you get lost in that. And I think the danger that we are having now, and why it's so important that you guys are speaking up, and why it's so important that people are speaking up about mental health, is because social media is amazing. Don't get me wrong. We can connect like this, which is wonderful. We can raise awareness, which is wonderful. But there's also that very dark side of social media. And like you said, people are looking at other people's social medias, and there's this image of, you know, this person's got an 8-pack and this person's this and this person's that. And people are comparing themselves to other people, and young people, young teenage boys, young teenage girls are comparing themselves to these people they see. And they're just looking at a body, which is just a body. They're not seeing what's inside that person. And these young people are looking at these people's bodies going, I want that, because that means I'm going to be rich. That means I'm going to be successful. That means I'm going to be liked. And in reality, it's not the truth. What we see on social media isn't all real. And the danger we face if we don't speak up about mental health is that these young people are going to get lost in this, and they are getting lost in it. Yeah. And it's a scary place.
Oh, I'm loving this already. We didn't really feel like we were going to go this direction, but this is what I love about conversation and like locking horns with people who've got the same passions. Because I feel like as well, I've seen a few like risk-taking behaviours in terms of diet and exercise, like people that got trying out the bin bags. So extreme sweat. Our body's made of like 70% of water, and you're like, they think that losing weight. It's not. It's water loss. It's not actual pure fat burning, and like these crazy like diets that aren't like a healthy balance of micronutrients with your carbs, proteins and fat percentiles. You know, they're not calculated properly, and they're just like literally, and it's not a sustainable lifestyle. It's just like a diet, and it's like a crash and burn. I just see it as it's this trapping of this comparison, as you just alluded to beautifully. And like, you know, I know of it, like people just like thinking it's going to work, like it's going to result in what they see across the screen. And Yeah, I'm just like, oh man, don't, you know, in a judgmental way, but like, oh, don't do that. That's not, it's
Yeah,
not the best
don't.
life.
And the World Health Organization defines overall health as physical, spiritual, mental, and social. You know, it's not just the physical side. And I think people are heavily, you know, they look at somebody else's physical body on Instagram and they're like, oh, well, if I look like that, I'm going to be happy. And it's like, well, no, because you've got the mental side of it, you've got the spiritual side of it. You know, there's so much going on inside your mind and inside your body that has nothing to do with how you look. And I think people don't know how to be mentally and emotionally well, and so they think that exercise and the gym and dieting and all that's going to solve it, and it's not, because it, from somebody who got a perfect skinny body that was all ripped and looked amazing, I still wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because I wasn't happy inside. I wasn't happy inside. And if you're not happy in your mind and you're not happy in your self-esteem and you're not happy internally, doesn't matter what you look like on the outside, it's not gonna happen.
She's saying how it is. We're only 10 minutes in almost. No, it's good. It's good. You got to be real people, and you know, you know, fellas could be like, oh, what's she on about? She's the last, but that's irrelevant. Your gender is irrelevant right now, because every person sees what they see in the mirror. Every person is self-conscious, no matter how the levels of intensity it is. And you know, you've just spoke it, like you got cut, I've been cut, and most of my life I've been really like physically healthy, like all my life. I'm talking, you know, 31 years of it, just great body, like not, and that's not being big-headed. That's just because I've constantly exercised, but my head was in a bad place. And you know, it does help. There's factors that help, but as you said, there's four pillars to it, and one of them is your head.
It is, and it's a huge part of it. You know, mental well-being is spiritual, social, physical, and the mental side of it. So don't get me wrong, exercise is amazing for your overall well-being. It raises endorphins, it gets rid of toxic energy, it releases trauma, does all sorts. But if you're going into exercise so that you look a certain way, that's not the answer. If you're exercising because you want to feel good within your overall well-being, and because it makes you feel good and it makes you feel pleasant, that's great. But if you're going into it just because, if you're punishing your body into something because you want to look like somebody on Instagram, it's only going to cause more anxiety and more overwhelm and more comparison, which is dangerous for you know, your health.
Massive. This is good. I was a bit nosy, so I was checking through your feed, your wall, and on Insta, and I was like, just, you know, getting a real good picture about what you're about. And what I like about you is that you're quite unique in what you bring to the table. But there was one thing that really stood out for me that I thought, oh yeah, that's something that I don't hear much of. That's something that I know fellas watching, you know, today's episode 12 could really like benefit from. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about deconditioning, because it's like it's a phrase that I've not really heard mainstream, and I think it's really important. Like I've not done massive of research into it, but I know that you could bring something for the fellas today. So could you just like, you know, define what deconditioning is and how that could benefit like blokes' productivity and just their mental health and stuff?
Yeah. So there's different levels of what deconditioning is. I'm a human design reader, and I don't know if you've heard of human design, but it's basically the science of differentiation. And it says that we all come here with our unique energy, and it's a mixture of sort of genetics, astrology, the chakra system, all sorts of different Eastern philosophies. And so deconditioning from a human design perspective is you learn what your own unique energy is, so what your strategy and authority is, and that helps you decondition for what doesn't serve you. So it says that what we're sold in society, i.e. you need to do everything a certain way, you need to do this, you need to be successful, you need to make money, there's only one way to do it, blah 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 blah, we're all conditioned to that. So human design says deconditioning is basically letting go of what doesn't serve you. Now, if you're not coming at it from a human design perspective, if you're not interested in human design and you're just interested in mental health and personal development, deconditioning essentially means, well, if you talk about what conditioning is, so conditioning is, we are all born, obviously, and we all see what's going on in society. So from the minute we are born, we are being conditioned by each other. So we're conditioned by our parents, we're conditioned by society, we're conditioned genetically, stuff comes through our genetics, We're now heavily conditioned by social media because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we're taking in all of this information all of the time, and we're going, oh, you know, I need to be like that. I need to be like that. He's like that, so I need to be like that. Oh, my mum's like that. My dad's like that. And we're taking in conditioning. But what's happening then is we are losing sight of our own intuition. We're losing sight of our own unique way, purpose in life. We all come here as somebody different and unique.
Yeah, I mean, our DNA is completely unique.
Yeah, our energies are all unique. We're not all supposed to do things the same way. Some people are really strategic. They're really focused. They're really good at, you know, creating business plans, etc., etc. With human design, it teaches you that you've got these people that do come here and they are strategic and they are good at a plan and they are good at routine. Equally, you've got 50% of the other population that aren't supposed to be strategic. They're not supposed to follow a plan. They're supposed to let the environment come to them, and they're supposed to respond. You know, they're supposed to just go out and have fun experiences and not have a plan and let the world come to them. So, for instance, if you're somebody who wants to start a business, you're looking at somebody else starting a business and going, well, they did it that way, so I need to do it that way. And then you come up against resistance because it's like, why is this not working for me, but it worked for them? Well, because you're not supposed to do it like them, because you're not them, you know, you're you. You've got to do what makes you feel good. So part of the deconditioning process is to stop looking to the external world to give you the answer. And it's to take the time to step back and go, okay, what are my values? What do I like doing? What makes me excited? You know, what makes me excited? Not Bob down the road or blah, blah on social media. What makes me excited? What lights me up? What am I good at? What are my strengths? Rather than focusing on what you're not good at and then trying to be like somebody else, why don't you focus on what you are good at? And in that way, you then just naturally decondition. You're letting go of what society tells you is right, and you're moving into your flow. And when you move into your flow, that's where you become the best version of yourself, you know?
Optimum performance then. Bangers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. What I want to say, because this is gone, we're going into the meat right now, viewers. So what I want to say to you is, let's pause for a second. And I don't normally do this, but I'm going to say let's pause in terms of where we are. Let's just have a think about this deconditioning. And what I want to say, this isn't more of a practical element that I want to bring to the table today. And I don't normally do this. Usually it's just like a free-flowing chat. But I just think that Cleo's got some massive strategies and like tools around her armory that she's just giving you right now. And you could have been distracted by something in the room or a phone call or something, and you've missed it. So what I want to say to you, and this is a challenge from the bottom of my heart, not to wind you up, but to say, look, if you want change, this is how you can start that process. Clearly, not saying she got all the answers, but she has a way here and a strategy. And I, for one, know that the things that she's described in the last 5-10 minutes, I've seen it work in young people's lives. I've seen it work in primary school ages. I've seen it work in my life. And, you know, I'm not the end product, but what I want you to do is to pause this video. Not right now, because I need to say one thing. After I've said it, pause the video, go back about 8 minutes or so, find when we start talking in about the deconditioning, and I want you to replay it. Then I want you to pause this video again. And then what I want you to do is get a piece of paper and a pen or whatever you got near you to write with. And I want you to start writing about what your values are, what your passions are, what your relationships look like, what your career aspirations are. And I want you to start thinking what makes you tick, what gives you energy, what makes you want to wake up in the morning. And you've got some stuff out of your head right there, and you're making it unique to what Cleo's saying. And from there, you can start strategizing. You can start thinking, right, well, am I even in the right career right now? Am I in a toxic relationship? Where is my life heading? And so we're just encouraging right now with some tools, because this is massive. So can you do that? So pause this video, get some paper, re-listen the last 8 minutes deconditioning, and start mapping out your life. Because if you don't, it stays in here, and you're going to be all over the place. So yeah, sorry, Cleo. I felt that was massive information for some fellas, and I think sometimes we just go, yeah. As blokes, what we do, yeah. All right. No, yeah, nice one. I'll get round to it. I'll sort it out. It's like, yeah. No, you won't. You'll just get distracted.
It's really important, whether you're male or female, to make things tangible. So there's all well and good knowing the information, but if you don't know what to do with that information, it's not helpful. So creating really practical steps for yourself is really useful. And men generally like practicality. So yeah.
Oh, this is good. Oh, this is good. What I want to ask you is, I feel like this is the reason why we started connecting. So you work for a mental health charity, and you mentioned about the representation of men, whether it's the workforce, and even like I've put some stats on, or many episodes ago, I think it was in the episode 5, toxic masculinity, and talking about actually how men, we just don't like to access mental health services or help. And hence I've started Enlighten the Shadows, not because I think the be all end all, but it's another option, a different way, a means for, fellas to just anonymously, listen to the information, maybe make some changes. But can you just tell the viewers a little bit about this area of life of, men in the workforce, men who are being helped, and also what, based from that information, what you think might be the answer and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. So yeah, I work for a mental health charity, and from what I can see from the charity that I work for and all the other charities, is in terms of the workforce, it's heavily women. Like say we've got 20 odd members of staff, we've got 2 men, and then so the rest we've got 18 women, and wow. we get just as many men coming through our service with mental health crisis as we do women. And so not only like men aren't working as recovery workers, men aren't in the area of mental health. There are so many less men in the area, and I've noticed this, and it's a shame, because I think we need more men in this environment talking about mental health, because like I said, just as many men have mental health issues as women, and if not more sometimes, because they've let things build up over time and haven't spoken about it, so there's so many men. And I think sometimes it's really beneficial for a man who's in crisis or just having mental health issues or whatever, or it's really helpful for a man to speak to a man, because as much as we're all one and we're all humans, men do speak a different language, Yeah. And so I might say something to a man going through crisis, and it may not hit home with him, because I am a woman and I do speak in a certain way, and it may not speak to him. It doesn't mean to say I can't help him, but I think the relationship between a recovery coordinator, a therapist, and a coach, and between the person that's come for support is it's scientifically proven that that's 80%. That the effectivity of whether somebody gets better it's 80% of that is based on the relationship. So I think it's really important that men are speaking to men. And I think men, and not only that, but obviously men are inspired to open up about their own mental health and confront it if they're speaking to a man who's also been through the same and can relate to that. It's men don't want to necessarily be vulnerable. They want to be strong. They want to appear this way. Yeah. To then have to then go to a woman and say, I need help. It's not always that easy, and I find that when I have conversations with a lot of men, it takes me quite a long time to break them down to be able to really be honest with me. They'll come in, they'll put up this front, they'll be like, I don't know why I'm here, I'm all right, it's not that bad. It takes me a really long time to create that safe space for them to then go, do you know what, I can be honest here, it's all going to shit. So it takes me a while. And I just think, like I said, men sometimes speak a bit of a different language, and I think more men need to work in mental health. And that's why what you guys are doing is so amazing. And you can see it in society now and social media, that more and more men are talking about it. It is becoming more of a thing, which is wonderful, because I think we need it. And so in terms of what we do about it going forward, the reason I wanted to come on this show as well is to just encourage more men that if you are interested in mental health, but you don't know what route to go down, working for a mental health charity or becoming a recovery worker can be a really good foot in the door. If you're not interested in starting your own business or setting up on your own, and you just want to see how it works, becoming a recovery worker is really useful. It's how I did it. It's a stepping stone. I don't want to work in crisis forever, but I wanted not only to work with people to help them flourish, but I wanted to be able to work on the edge of mental health as well and see what it's really like at the other end. So I want to encourage more men to get into mental health if they're interested. Being a recovery worker is a really good place to start. It can really open your eyes and help you to start. And you don't need mental health experience to become a recovery worker, because that's what you're getting. It's the first step, really. And I think the more men that start working in the environment, the more men that speak up, the more men are going to open up, and it's just going to become the norm that people talk about what they're going through, especially men. So yeah,
that's amazing. to ask you on that note, if there's fellas watching this who feel like, rather than being stuck with maybe where they're at, and they think, well, actually, sometimes it's best to give, because in giving, despite in a place of brokenness, if you can give, it actually helps you climb out of your mess in a way. It doesn't fix it. It's not the answer, but it does help you because you're not focused inwardly, but more outwardly. Would you say to men like who are maybe having a bit of doubt, if they want to help others, any advice you could give them about, because we could be our own worst critics at times and be like, oh, no, I ain't gonna be any good at that or anything like that. What can you say to encourage men to really just step out?
I think we all have those fears, don't we? Whether you're a man or a woman, if you're taking on a new challenge, you're always gonna, it's normal human being nature to be like, oh, I'm scared of that. I'm not gonna be any good. It's not for me. I'm gonna look stupid. That's totally normal. And we all have them fears. And I think it's important to remember that you're always going to have them fears in life, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't have a go. And I think if you just stop, if you can try and stop putting so much expectation on yourself, it's like, I think as human beings, we're very outcome focused. We're always looking at the outcome, you know, and because we're not sure of what outcome we're going to get, or because we're really fixated on getting a specific outcome, we create a lot of pressure and expectation. So rather than looking at the outcome, go back again to your values, go back again to what you want, what purpose you've got and what you're doing it for. And if you think that giving back and you want to know more about mental health, come back to your why and why you're doing it, and let go of the outcome a little bit, because when you're outcome focused, there's a lot of fear. But if you just focus in on the process and go, look, I just want to see if I can help people. Yeah. I just want to raise my awareness around mental health. It doesn't really matter what happens. It's all a life experience. If I can help somebody, then fantastic. If I can help myself, fantastic. But just take one step, one step. And if you don't want to go full into, okay, well, I'm going to become a recovery worker, just volunteer for a couple of hours. There's so many opportunities to volunteer. Just go and volunteer for a couple of hours for a charity and see what happens. Again, that's how I started. I volunteered on the helpline on a Friday night, and then it led me to a job. So,
Oh, wow. So you just like a call answer for...
Yeah, I was a kitchen designer, and I just started my master's degree. I was designing kitchens, and I thought, I want to learn more about mental health because this is the area I'm going into. Yeah. How can I do it with what time I have? And I just started working for the mental health charity on a Friday night, answering the helpline. And then 3 jobs became available the week after. And I was like, it's a bit of a pay cut, but it's the area I want to go into. So you've got to make the sacrifice. And that's what I did. So.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you must have had like quite a lot of conversations, obviously, now with the years of experience you've had. Can you, because I don't think I've asked you about this, but can you think back of a particular bloke that you spoke to where they was in a pretty bad place, so you can inspire some of the viewers and enlighten them with what was done? But obviously confidentiality is absolutely paramount, totally. So we're not going to disclose names or anything like that. But is there a case of him that stands out where he was in a really dark place, he's putting on a bit of front, as you alluded to earlier, in a way? Can you just take us through a bit of a journey on that, like where he went from, and some of the things that you talked about, obviously not in detail, but rough topics, and then some of the kind of steps and tools you gave him to then end up over here where he was kind of a bit more restored, and then he didn't really require any help? Can you just give us like a case study almost, like, so people can kind of relate a little bit?
Yeah, so we have, I'll give you a general sort of an average of sort of a man that would come through the crisis support service. So we get a lot of people that and again, we get all ages, but we get a lot of people that are perhaps in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're very, very, very lost. And perhaps, again, like I always say on my Instagram page, mental health is not circumstantial. So you don't have to have been abused, neglected, whatever, to have mental health issues, because we get a lot of men who come through and they feel weak because they've not been through anything huge, and they're like, well, I don't deserve to have mental health because nothing's happened to me. And so then they just deny it, and they deny it, and they deny it, and they won't face it. And then they become very isolated and very lost because they can't make sense of why they're going through what they're going through. So I want to say that mental health isn't circumstantial. You don't have to. I didn't experience any trauma. It just happened, it was just a thing, So But yeah, anyway, I've gone off topic. But yeah, mental health is not circumstantial. So I think with say I use a specific man, you've got a person in their late 20s, early 30s that comes through the service and they don't understand. They feel really, really bad on a day-to-day basis. They feel depressed, they feel low, they feel a lot of pressure. They've got very low self-esteem. Now, because they've felt bad and had very low self-esteem, they've got themselves into perhaps some toxic relationships in their life, perhaps some negative girlfriends, perhaps some toxic friendships. Also, perhaps they've got toxic family around them, you know, because when you've got low self-esteem and you don't value yourself, you tend to attract the people that come into your life, feed into that issue. You know, you tend to attract toxic people that will then feed on your vulnerability. And then what happens is that you don't feel very good about yourself, and then you attract the wrong person into your life, and then they build up that belief in you that I'm not good enough, I'm treated badly, I'm never going to have a healthy relationship, my boundaries are always going to be overstepped, etc., etc. So a lot of the people I work with in terms of men is because they've got very low self-esteem and they don't know how to feel better about themselves. And also they've got the added issue of they've got nobody around, they're isolated. They've got nobody around them who understand their mental health. So perhaps their family have denied it or never been through it before. Perhaps their friends are all quite macho men and they're all just like, what are you on about, mate? Perhaps they work in, and we've got a lot of men that work in construction, they're labourers, you know, they don't talk about that stuff at work. They just don't. And so they've spent years and years hiding it. And what happens when you spend years and years hiding it, it's a bit like a volcano. It builds inside, it builds inside, it builds inside, and then all of a sudden you just go, you know. So that's the sort of man we get. It's a man that's perhaps got the wrong people around him. Perhaps he's isolated. Perhaps he's got very, very low self-esteem. Perhaps he feels depressed and he doesn't really know why. And so how we help that person is, how I help that person is I just be really real with them. You know about that. You know, I just be myself. I just be really real with them. And I explain the science behind depression and anxiety. So something that really, really helps all of my clients, all of the service users I work with is, so for instance, they have like intrusive thoughts and intrusive voices, which can be really scary. Now we develop intrusive thoughts and intrusive voices because we go through a trauma in our life. And again, like I said, trauma doesn't have to be massive. It can be a breakup, moving house, death of a loved one, dad leaving when we were a kid, mum leaving when we were a kid, anything. We go through a trauma and then our nervous system goes into fight, flight or freeze. We don't feel that happening, so we don't really know what it is, and we aren't taught in school what fight, flight or freeze is. So our nervous system goes into a certain level of shock. And when that happens, things start to happen with the body. We start to hear voices, psychosis, you know, we start to see things, we start to develop OCD behavior. Now that can be very scary, but if you sit down and talk to a man about the science behind that, because you know, men like science, they want to, you know, they're like, oh, I can understand that. It's not floaty emotional. Ooh, you know, it's not any of that. It's like the science behind anxiety. And I talk about the nervous system, what happens to the vagus nerve, what happens to something in the internal ear that switches on. I talk about all these things and I tell them that anybody who's gone through any level of trauma, this will happen to your nervous system. As a result, that is why you are hearing voices. That is why you are, and then once you explain that to them and explain that millions of other men go through the same thing, and women, they're like, oh my God, I'm not mental. Crazy, I'm not crazy. I'm not mental. I'm not broken. I'm not a lost cause. It's science. It's science.
I think flashbacks as well.
Yeah,
you get flashbacks of incidents and people, and dreams as well, I think could be another one. Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, all of that stuff. There's a science behind it. So I always start with talking about the science behind it and how we all of us have a nervous system. And this is what happens to our nervous system when we go through any shock or trauma. So that's one thing that's really important. And then just helping men to really, really open up and talk, helping a man to understand that just because we're conditioned in society to believe that boys don't cry, men need to be men need to be the strength, men don't do this. That's not true. It's just conditioning by society, you know? And I think the beauty of it is well, what's happened is we've been conditioned by society and then it's bred, it's genetic. Men, not only do men speak a bit of a different language, But I often find when I'm talking to men about their mental health, it's not that they don't want to talk about their mental health. It's almost like they can't. They don't have the language, because genetically men aren't designed to speak in that way.
No,
and
no,
so
we're not.
no, so you try to talk to a man about it, and it's almost like the language isn't there. And it's because genetically you're not born with it, because it's been happening over millions and millions and millions of years, where this is bred into men that they're not supposed to do this. And I think the beauty of where we're getting to now in society, as a society, is the fact that men like you are raising awareness about mental health. We're becoming more and more comfortable. Men are becoming more and more comfortable trying to talk about their emotions and how they're feeling. And what's going to happen is we're going to start breeding men. We're going to start breeding new men. We're going to start breeding new men that can do this. They can talk about their emotions. They can be open. And so the beauty of it is, in a few years we'll be breeding a different type of man, which is amazing.
Hybrids.
Yeah, exactly.
Hybrids. Yeah, because when I was at my primary school role, it was just the most amazing job. Absolutely brilliant. And I worked with some of the most challenging children in Nottingham. And when I say challenging, to me, now and then it was a challenge, but I've got a bit of thick skin, and I try and see it that it's not misbehavior. There's something deeper going on there, and it's about getting on their level and then nurturing them. But what we actually did, I had groups of 5 or 6 that I was given access to. That the senior management at the school I worked at in Nottingham, absolutely amazing. The whole structure of the place is how most primary schools need to be. Very nurture based. Interestingly, the male staff population was really high. The ratio was nearly 1:1 male female for the whole staff team. Even the nurture team itself was like more male. It was absolutely just incredible. But anyway, the point I'm making is we had like groups of 5 or 6 children that we needed to we identified that needed that support, that emotional social learning and regulation stuff. And so I used to run groups all the time, and I actually taught the children flight, fight, freeze and submit. Talked about trauma, talked about understanding different feelings, how feelings can affect you, what the different emotions are, how to identify them, how to recognize other people potentially, how to have empathy, all these things we did in this school, and you could see the transformation and I'm talking about children who would be kicking off, like absconding out of the classroom, throwing chairs and tables, fighting, hurting adults and children, just not accessing any learning, to then transforming them. So this stuff works, guys. I know we're going deep with the science, but it's the what behind the why. And if you don't know the what, you can't understand it, interpret it, and you just stay stuck. But if I can support, let's just say one child whose father's in prison, if I can support him, and he had to make the choice. I got real with him. I told him straight. I said, this is going to go 2 ways. Either I'm going to break you, and I told him this. I said these words: I'm going to break you, and you're going to change, and you're going to be the amazing young lad that you can be, that you're bright and intelligent, and that you will be able to control the way you feel, and you will be able to interpret it. Or you break me, and I'm just another staff member that gets rotated away from you, and your behavior in your life doesn't change. I said, it's only going to give 2 ways. So I said, which one is it? And people are like, I can't believe you said that to an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old. And I'm like, well, I did, because there's no father figure, sadly. And there's a lot of fellas that won't have these conversations. They'll have an utmost conversation about other things of life, but some of the most important things, fellas, that you're watching in this episode right now, the most important things is actually where you're at in your head. Because if you're not right in your head, you're going to be doing some of the most risky behaviors. And this is something I want to ask Cleo about in a minute. But, if we don't talk about this, if we don't identify it, you're just going to be trapped. And that's why Enlighten the Shadows exists, because we're bringing all these things out of the shadows into our light. That's why it's called that. So we just want to encourage you, like, if you feel like any of the stuff Cleo described and resonated, get in touch. I'll bring it on the screen right now. We've got the email address. We're here for you. We'll talk to you. We can help signpost you. So here it is. It's enlightenthe.sh1@gmail.com. We're soon going to create a Facebook closed, safeguarded environment where we can encourage one another. But we just got to keep building momentum here before we kickstart that. But yeah, we just want to support you guys, and we're here for you. We want to say to you on a level, get in touch. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. I have disclosed many things on this show in the last few months. I've written an article to Site Reg. I'll put that on the screen right now, and why I started it. And I've been through so much mess, but I had to come to a point where I had to be real and honest and frank and open up, or else it wasn't working. So please don't suffer in silence, as Deeks did last week, episode 11. Ian Deacon, sorry, Cleo, I'm just going off. But
No, you carry on.
yeah, Ian Deacon came on the show and he shared things that, and it's not to offend them, but some of the close people in his life didn't know. But that's the point. We're here in a safe environment, platform where no one's going to judge us. No one's going to dig us out and laugh and think you're pathetic or you're weak or you need to man up. None of that nonsense. We don't tolerate that crap on here. We're real and we say it how it is, and that's fine. It stays here. Like you're saying, what goes in Vegas stays in Vegas. So what goes on in Light the Shadows stays on in Light the Shadows. So please do something about it. You know, and I put up every episode signposts for Samaritans and Calm and all these different amazing places where you can chat on the phone for free or get on the web chat. Do it, please. Don't rob yourself of a blessed life and empowering and transforming and finding that freedom in your mind so you can be the better version of you. Not 100%, but way better. So yeah, there's my little spiel.
There you go.
I love it. Do you know, I had Dr. Thoraya, she's a clinical psychologist on episode 7, talking about suicide, and I had this little moment where I just had this fire in me. I'm like, no, we need to say how it is. We need to be passionate.
You have to.
What's the point, right?
Exactly. And you've got to say what you got to say. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, I want to. This is more of a flashing light for some fellas that I want you to kind of just maybe elaborate a little bit, and something you might have heard or had conversations about that risk-taking behavior, because you mentioned about how if we surround ourselves with those people and environments, that it can make us feel worthless almost. But I sense that in that state of worthlessness that some fellas watching may feel, where it feels hazy, it feels grey, they feel like they're almost in a dream in a sense. They feel numb. They can't be asked with anything or anyone. They're just flat. It's usually when there's not much going on, and you know they're at home or whatever, and you know you find like risk-taking behaviour starts to happen. Can you just share any of that stuff? How the science that might work, or some of the actual things that blokes do turn to, and you know, if we can go real as well, because we have to say it how it is. That could be damaging for them, and then they're addicted, and then obviously leads to addictions as well. So yeah, I don't know if you could enlighten us any of that.
Yeah, so obviously I think the biggest thing that keeps people trapped in this sense of hopelessness, worthlessness, and this, you know, just all this grey and unmotivation is the isolation part. And it can be very easy to isolate yourself because you don't feel good. And then it's a vicious circle, because you isolate yourself because you don't feel good. You cut yourself off in the world, then you feel even worse, and you just get stuck in this loop. And you have to break the isolation. So whether that's picking up the phone to Turning Point, Samaritan, Shout, whatever, you know, whether that's picking up the phone, whether that's picking up the phone to a friend to be able to say, this is shit, this is how I feel, you know, help me out. Or whether it's, you know, just making sure that you're not isolated. Because when you're isolated, this risk-taking behavior is the only way out. You know, you've got nobody else's energy to feed. Sometimes your energy is so low and your energy is so depleted. We're all made of energy. We need each other's energy. So if you don't have the energy yourself, go out and get somebody to give you it, because there's so many people out there that will try and give you their energy. And when you feel, it's all well and good, you know, like just scrolling through your phone or whatever. But it's not always enough. You know, we feed each other with our energy. And so if you're stuck in this very low, when I've been at my lowest states, the biggest thing that has helped me is somebody helping me to dig myself out, because you can't dig yourself out alone. It's really, really difficult. It's like having a massive hole and trying to dig yourself out on your own. You know, 2 hands are better than one. So if you've got nobody positive around you at this moment in time, pick up the phone to a mental health charity or to a support line. If you've got positive people around you, even if I know it feels hard when you're lacking motivation and you feel useless and vulnerable and everything else, but there are people out there that want to help you. And even if you think people are going to judge you, they're not. It's just you judging yourself. That's it. Nobody else is judging you. We think because we judge ourselves that everybody else in the world is doing the same, and they're not. It's
Dynamite.
it's just the judgment that you have of yourself. Think about it from a different perspective. If it was one of your friends or family and they came to you saying, I'm hopeless, I'm losing it, life's not worth living, you know, what would you do? How would you react to that person? So try and take yourself out of your own head and put yourself in a different perspective. And would you be there to support somebody else? You know, would you be there to help somebody and give them the energy? So isolation is a big problem. If you're engaging in, you know, risky behaviors, if you're staying on your own, it's going to be very difficult to dig yourself out. So whatever you do, try not to stay on your own. Get out of isolation.
Yeah, so I'm a Christian, right? And there's a little acronym for when you're gonna like fall, like so sin, basically they call it. The Bible calls it sin. So when you basically do something that isn't good for you, nor is it glorify God, sort of thing. So it's right in, and one of the letters is what you've just alluded to. So it's called hit. So it says the devil is going to hit you when you're when you're hungry.
Yeah.
So usually when you're hungry, you get hangry. You're frustrated. You start saying and doing things that you don't mean, and you've got no energy. Energy leads to just all sorts. So H, hungry. I is isolated. Don't need to elaborate anymore. You just smash that out of the park. And then T is tired. When we're tired, we're crabby. We're not energized. We're not going to make the right choices or say the right things or have the correct judgments that might be slightly cloudy because we're tired. So yeah, HIT, H-I-T, hungry, isolated, tired. It's a banger. I learned that quite a few years ago.
It's amazing.
Yeah, from a bloke. I don't know if it was Mark Driscoll or Paul Walsh. I can't remember. Anyway, one of my favorite preachers, he said it. I was like, oh my gosh. And every single time, and I say this to the viewers, it's so true. Watch yourself. Try it. If you make a mistake, let's just call it that. If you make a mistake in your life, say something, do something wrong, check the hit. Is it because you're hungry, isolated, or tired? I'm telling you now, it'd be one of those, 100%.
Yeah. And we have a nervous system. You know, we're animals essentially. We need to be fed. We need to be social. We're social creatures. We need to be fed. We need to sleep. You know, they're all the basics. You know, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. You need shelter. You need warmth. You need food. There's your basics. You can't self-actualize. You can't flourish if you've not got the basics down. So a lot of people that I work with in crisis, that, you know, the hygiene's gone out the window, the food's gone out the window, fresh air's gone out the window, social interaction's gone out. So I always work with people on that lowest level because you are never going to flourish if you don't get the basics right. So get up and have a shower, just a shower. That's it. If that's your only thing that you do today, have a shower. Have a piece of toast. If it's the only thing you do, have a piece of toast. Just look after those lower 3 tiers, because if you can keep, what makes you human is being able to eat, sleep, and, you know, try and be a bit sociable. So get those bits down, and then you can build from there, rather than trying to think, oh, well, I need to self-actualize, I need to flourish. Well, you're not going to flourish if you don't build the basics. So,
oh, you're bringing out the flames today. What we'll do is we'll put on the screen, because I'm massive in my background experiences is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what Cleo is referring to, we'll put it on the screen right now for you guys. So as you can see, we've got like a pyramid triangle starting from a strong, wide and long foundation. As you know, a foundation that has weak materials, it cannot stand, it will fall. So as you can see, it's food and shelter at the bottom. And slowly as you're funneling up, you can get to that optimized performance. You can be the real, like, I'm beast mode. I'm me. This is who I am. I'm in my flow. I'm good. I feel blessed. My life's good. My mind's in a good place. Feel fit, healthy. That is what Cleo is saying right at the top there, is self-actualization. That's ultimately what it means, where we can perform in our best state of mind and be the best version of us and succeed and have a spirit of excellence over us and try new challenges and go on ventures and make life what it's there to be living. So yeah.
I think Will Smith's got that really great quote, hasn't he? And obviously Will Smith's big in the game for personal development and spirituality and whatever, but he talks about building a brick wall. You know, you don't just have a full wall or a house. You know, you have to build each brick with each brick and each brick. And a lot of people I work with, they're looking at the end goal. They want to be like, you know, I want to be who I used to be before mental health breakdown. I want to be who I used to be when I was strong. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. You've got to build the bricks. You've got to relate each brick. You're not just going to get from here to over there. And if you try to get from here to over there, that's too big. That goal is too big. You're too far away. You're going to overwhelm yourself. It's going to feel hard. And you don't want it to feel any harder than it needs to feel. So lay the bricks, you know, and eventually before you know it, you'll have the house, but you've got to lay the bricks.
That's so good. Taking it one step at a time, guys, because I think that's our generation, because we're quite instantaneous. You know, we see things on the internet, and we're not slagging off the internet again, but we love the internet, because we wouldn't be having this right now. But, or like the shadows on YouTube, but we see the end goal, as you say, we see the end roof, we see the property, prim proper, and we metaphorically compare it to us as a person. And when we see things that we haven't got or we aspire to, and we think, oh, but we don't see, this is what I've put, and this happens in Christian circles as well, that Christians see other Christians who are years ahead in their relationship with God. You know, whether you can relate it to anything, whether years down the line in their professional career, and all they see is the blessings that they've got. So the things that they own, how they present, you know, maybe even their house, whatever it is, and they look at it and go, oh, what they got? Oh yeah, that's why is it that God's blessing them, not me? And it's like, well, your mindset's wrong. Oh, pause. You haven't seen the years and the years and the years of trials and tribulations, all the mess that they've had to get through, all the toxicity in their life, sadly cutting people off in their life. And it's not being not loving, it's going, right,
boundaries.
You know, you look, exactly, you got to put positive boundaries in place. It's not judging anyone, it's just making your life better, so then you can make the world a better place. And they don't see it, they don't see the journey, they're not seeing the bricks that went into improving their lives. They go, oh, and it's like, hold on a minute, no, stop. And we do that. I've done it, we've all done it. We look at the end game and we go, oh yeah, it's like, no, there's a process. So yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why I love it when I'm on social media and I see somebody who shows you their whole journey. Like, you know, there's YouTubers out there that, you know, they show you the journey from the beginning to the end. And it's because then you can see, you know, there's always a process. Nobody is like Tony Robbins overnight. Do you know what I mean? He was like an addict. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't happen. Like, people go through journeys. You know, my mental health journey, I wasn't just how I am now. I didn't wake up at 32 and be like, oh, I'm healed. You know, like, it took 15 years of reading every single book and watching every single TED talk, and you know, and mental health isn't linear. You know, I had 1 year where I was great, and then a year when it was crap, and a year when it was better. And you know, it's not linear. Life is a journey, and it goes up and down. And if you attach to, I need to be better, everything's got to be better, I've got to be this version of myself, I've got to be this, the more you attach, the more fear you add, the more judgment you add, you know, the more tension you create. That's why in my coaching, I teach acceptance and commitment coaching, which is about learning to accept and go with the flow and not attach to the outcome, and just take each step. And it's a really gentle coaching approach, rather than this, you know, like a goal-driven, orientated, I'm going to be the best version of me. It's a more gentle approach that you need to learn to accept yourself and where you're at first, and then build, you know. Man,
are you sure you're not, I know you said you're into Eastern practices, are you sure you're not a Christian? You've got some biblical principles going on.
Here's my Course in Miracles book. So I do have faith. So, you know, my spirituality started with Buddhism, because I joined the Buddhist center in Leicester, because I thought, I need to meditate because my head is a mess, I am scrambled. And so I heard through a friend when I was 23 about meditation, and that's where I started, you know. So I joined the Buddhist center in Leicester, and that's where mine started. But that's led to, the more I learn about spirituality, is that all religions, it's all about love. It all comes from the same place. You know, we've been taught that, you know, you've got to follow one religion, and, you know, it's got to be God, or it's got to be Buddha, and they're all coming from the same place. And so I would say to any guys who are, and I'm sure you've said this before to guys, if you're struggling with your mental health, turn to faith, because it really helps you. It really does. Join a Buddhist center, go to a church on a Sunday, just listen to something online that gives you a bit of faith, you know, because it does give you hope when you feel hopeless. It really does. And I know that there's some men out there that are like, oh no, religion. It's not about, forget what we're taught about religion. Forget that. think about faith and hope.
Yeah. Well, we've corrupted it usually. It's humans that wreck it. I spoke to a geezer last night, and this is cool that we're chatting about this, because I don't actually talk about my faith and Jesus a lot on Enlighten the Shadows, because that's at the foundational truth of who I am as a person and what stems that love and that hope out to the world. And that's who I'm about and who I represent. But ultimately, I'm here for everyone, no matter what your colour, creed, religion, your background is. But I was at the pub last night with another mate of mine who's only been a Christian about a year, and he's like into his boxing and stuff. Anyway, this geezer came up to me and he's like, "Oh, you're right, mate." And I was like, "All right." And he said, "Oh, here's one of my mates." He's like, "Oh, do you want to go to church?" And I went, "Yeah, mate." I said, That's one of me, yeah. He's like, "Oh, no, I've got enough fairy tales in my kid's bed." And I went, "Yeah." I said, "I know, mate, a lot of fairy tales." I used to say that as well, mate. I said, "Come on." I said, "Take a risk." So then what you waiting for, standing around? And so I threw him off, because he's like, "Oh, he's not like weird, he's all right." But yeah, it's good.
Unfortunately, words like religion and spirituality put people off.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to just go at things with an open mind. Again, you don't, just because you become interested in spirituality or church doesn't mean to say that it has to define you. We don't have to be defined by it. Just whatever gives you a level of peace is good. So
that's what I said to him. I said, "What are you waiting for?" I said, "Why don't you take a risk?" He was like, "Oh yeah, well, I'll go. Yeah, I might go there." I said, "Come on. You ain't got nothing to lose, mate. Go one time." He's like, "All right, I'll go one time."
What else are you going to do on a Sunday morning in a minute? Let's be honest. Why not?
He was going about, smash it out my face and all this. I was like, "Yeah, good for you." I said, "I used to do that all the time, but it's good to talk about it." But Cleo, before we finish, because I've really enjoyed this, and time's like flying on this one.
Flies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It flies.
So I haven't asked this for a few episodes now, and I do like to ask this last. If people have gone this far in this episode with us. So what I'd like to ask you, Cleo, is our Enlighten the Shadows question, which is, what is the best piece of advice you could give to a bloke right now who's just completely struggling? They feel hopeless, and let's just be blunt, they just want to end it. That's it.
Talk to somebody immediately. Talk to somebody immediately. Ring a helpline, talk to a friend. You don't have to tell them the depths of your soul. Just tell them you're struggling, and then see what happens. If you sit on your own and just try and muddle through this, it's going to be really difficult. It's like I was saying earlier about, if you're trying to dig yourself out of a hole on your own, it's really hard. If you feel at your wit's end, if you are at rock bottom, remember, if you're at rock bottom, you're at rock bottom. There's no further down. The only way is up. Talk to somebody, talk to somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. Just say, "I'm struggling, I need help." That's all you need to say, and just see what happens. Because just talking to somebody will make you feel less hopeless. It will make you feel less isolated. We are social creatures. We need to be together. We need to connect. It's important for us. So talk to someone.
Oh, I love it. Thanks, Cleo. Is it Turning Point? Is that a good charity to call? Have they got a hotline?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so Turning Point have a 24-hour helpline,
Coming on the screen right now. Bang. Give them a call, fellas. Don't hold back. Just go for it. Yeah, I know your heart will be racing. I know you feel nervous. I know you'll be thinking, I'm going to think I'm an absolute idiot. No.
Every man I've ever spoke to has said, "I nearly didn't ring." And then at the end of every call has said, "I'm so glad I rang." So
come on. Bang.
Yeah.
Fellas, do it.
Yeah. Remember, everything is way scarier in our head than it is in real life.
100%. Do it scared. I heard that saying once. Do it scared.
Yeah, it's feel the fear and do it anyway.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we've landed. So, guys, it's been an amazing episode. It's been episode 12 with Cleo Whitehead. She's been absolutely wonderful, and I've been checking her out, as I said, on the Instagram. When she got in touch, I thought, oh my gosh, this lass has got it lit, and she's brought some massive things. So rewatch as you can. As I say, early in the start of the episode, I'm so grateful, particularly this week, for all of the shares and the following. And I've said this many times, and I'll say it again, this is not about me. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, and I've started this when I didn't really want to. One of the toughest years of my life. I'm doing it because I can relate that there's many out there who won't speak. So if you're accessing this, I want to say thank you, but it needs to be shared. So if you're on Facebook, get this link. This is going to be out, as you're seeing it now, as Sunday, 7:30 on our YouTube channel. Get the link, copy and paste it, put it in your Facebook and post it. and give a comment and say what you want about it, but just do it, because you've got friends, people on your list that I haven't got access to. Also, if you're on YouTube right now, it takes 1 minute to set up your own YouTube account. So you can click subscribe, but it'll just pie you and say, no, you need a YouTube account. It takes 1 minute, whack in your email address, log on. And if you don't use YouTube much, I really appreciate if you did. That'd be great. Because I think we're on about 59 subscribers. If we get to 100, magic number. So we'll get more clout behind us to do bigger things. On the socials, we've got Instagram and Twitter as always. Handles coming up right now. It's at ENLIGHTEN the SH1. Give us a follow. We appreciate it. And just lastly, we have got some massive things coming up. We had a team meeting yesterday. We've tried to get in touch with 200 Degrees Coffee. We use their coffee. We love them. We'll see what happens there, guys, with that. We want to build bridges in the community, so there's access points, and people working together holistically so that men can't suffer alone. So we've got something in the pipeline there, hopefully. We're looking to set up as a registered charity very soon, and we'll start moving muscle and doing our bit. We're trying to collaborate in the communities at football clubs. We've even spoke about being level 5 certified in CBT as an entry point. So we're doing big things, and that's why we're saying it, because we want to do our bit to make this world a better place. So thank you so much, all of you. And thank you to Cleo. You guys have a great week coming up, and God bless you. All right. Cheers, guys.